The Stranger Things series is officially over and will go down in the history of television as one of the greatest TV shows to have ever been produced. And that's the way it should be. But does this great story have a great ending? Let's find out. What up now, motherf***? You were talking mad on the internet though, huh? You ain't looking tough right now, huh, boy? Say something to me, man. What's up? What's up? Come on, man. What you gonna do, huh? What you gonna do? What? What was that? That's it. You're gonna get it now. Greetings, my friends. My name is Nick and you're watching Video Entertainment Talk. Today is a special day because I get to comment and analyze the 5th and final season of Stranger Things and the ending itself. First, let's say that the Duffer Brothers definitely introduced the audience to something unique in the world of sci-fi, dark fantasy and epic dramas. Actually, I hadn't paid attention to the show until season 2 aired, but then when I watched the first 2 seasons back to back, I fell in love with the story and the adventure of the gang. But now sadness fills the hearts of many fans because it's all over, and I have to say, on one side I feel like that too. I feel like I'm not ready to let go of this adventure and the gang. On the other hand, most great stories on TV are told in relatively concise ways, so the more seasons they produce, the higher the risk of diluting quality. I would first like to make a review and comment on the entire 5th season, talk about what I like, what I don't like, then draw a conclusion of how good the season and the final itself actually are. This episode contains spoilers for season 5, so if you haven't watched it yet, you can watch my video and hate me for life. It's all good. When it comes to season 5, I liked its first 4 episodes. There was some action, plus I enjoyed the indication of my guy Vecna's big plan. You don't know the full deal until episode 5, but you start to suspect something when he's trying to use more conniving tactics to collect children rather than using force. It was cool how in the midst of the season the situation got very bad, especially when Vecna appeared again at the military base right after the end of episode 4. Then, namely in episode 5, he showed off his dominance and upgrades by soldiers up, and some of them had a gruesome death, plus my boy didn't seem concerned with any of their weapons. But then it was time for a moment of hope, with Will unlocking his hidden power and becoming a sorcerer, as his friends called him of course. It turns out that by being Vecna's first vessel, he has the ability to tap into the hive mind and channel and manipulate Henry's power and the creatures he controls, which is how Will stops the Demogorgons from killing everybody, how he manages to hurt Vecna when he caught Holly and Max and was about to strangle Max, and how he manages to help the others fight him in the last episode. But we'll talk about that down the line. Before we continue, I'd like to invite you all to subscribe to the VET channel and hit that notification bell so you can skip YouTube's algorithm and get notified about any new content from the channel. If you'd like to support me even further, you can do that via the Revolut account you can see in the description of this video. There you can also find my Patreon page, which usually includes the full and uncensored version of each of my episodes. This typically has additional analysis, some spicy language and scenes that YouTube wouldn't accept. So if you'd like to support me, you know what to do. I also like that we got some answers to essential questions. For example, we get to see more of Henry's background story and we learn how he came to be the way he is today. We see how he had to make his first kill out of fear for his life and how he got infected with the Abyss's particles that also formed the Mind Flare. There's a surprising explanation for the different dimensions and their interaction. Turns out that when Eleven unleashed her full powers upon Henry at the lab, after he killed almost all the other kids, she created a portal through which she cast Henry into the Abyss, aka Dimension X, a dimension nobody knew existed until that point. And sometime later the Upside Down formed out of itself as a wormhole and a bridge between the two dimensions. What holds this bridge, as we find out due to Dustin's genius mind and the notes he found in the Upside Down, is the so-called exotic matter. It is described as a big ball of theoretical substance with negative energy density that acts like a battery, preventing the fleshy wall that surrounds the Upside Down from collapsing. I also like how, according to season 5 screenwriting, Henry's evil plan was to manipulate 12 kids by introducing himself as a good guy and a friend and transporting them into his own mind in a fabulous house where life looks great for children. There he would siphon their life energy, pain and fears while explaining to them that they're all using their power to defeat a dark entity that wants to harm them.
You can think of this darkness like the black thing in your book.
And his ultimate goal is to bring the Abyss to our Earth and merge the two dimensions, eliminating the Upside Down in the process, so Earth would be reshaped in a way he and the Mind Flayer see fit. It was cool to see a few mini storylines and conflicts that needed resolution, like the choices Jim and Jean had to make independently to do what must be done for the greater good and make their reasons clear to one another. I also found Steve and Dustin's heated relationship intriguing, with Dustin holding some anger towards Steve. That anger was mostly an outlet stemming from his pain due to Eddie's death in season 4, plus it was kind of a defensive mechanism to push Steve away because he was scared of losing him too. And the culmination was the moment Steve antagonized Dustin about Eddie. It was also cool to pair Nancy and Jonathan, as they needed some quality time to clear their relationship issues and come to terms with the fact that they shouldn't be together even though there's some love between them. Hence their "will you not marry me" moment. Although we always knew that Max wasn't really dead and she would come back, it was awesome to see her appear out of the blue and team up with Holly, who became one of the major characters in season 5. The young actress Nell Fisher, who was the new choice for playing the character, did a fantastic job. Of course, I can't miss mentioning Dip Derek, who was really funny and became famous with his motto, Visually, Stranger Things Season 5 gave me some mixed feelings. There are stunning CG scenes, plus the improved design and movement of the Demogorgon creatures, as there were definitely better mechanics in their motions, and the final form of the Mind Flayer is dope in my opinion. I also think that the upgraded version of Vecna's body is fantastic, and he truly looked like the godfather of this whole Stranger Things when he appeared out of the portal in episode 4. I'm with mixed feelings about the epilogue after the final fight. On one hand, I enjoyed the smoothness of it all, how the characters transformed 18 months later, who's doing what with their life and what they're planning for the future. I liked Steve, Nancy, Jonathan and Robin's meeting, and Dustin's graduation of the system speech, and the resurrection of the Hellfire Club. We see happiness, we see optimism, nostalgia, and still some pain from losing Eleven, especially by Mike, who couldn't accept her loss. But most importantly, we see the gang playing Dungeons and Dragons one more time before passing the torch to the younger generation. And it's in the final moments of the game that Mike creates a wishful narrative for each of the game's characters, who actually depict each person who is close to him. As he's telling the story, we can actually see through multiple shots everything that he's saying, including Jane being alive and well and finding that peaceful, beautiful place near two waterfalls, to where Mike told her he would go with her. So the audience remains with the impression that what he tells may actually be true, but it's open for interpretation. So that's what I have to say about Stranger Things Season 5, and more specifically about the things that I liked. But now comes the fun part: criticizing. But first, someone reminded me to remind you to subscribe to the VET channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss a thing when it gets published. If you'd like to support me even further, you can do that via the Revolut account you can see in the description of this video, and there you can also find my Patreon page, which includes the full and uncensored version of this episode and many others. This typically includes additional analysis, some harsher language, and some extra scenes that are too spicy for YouTube, or a bit cinematic, things that I would show on Patreon. So if you'd like to see the full content, if you'd like to support me, you know what to do. Let's quickly talk about the downsides of the visual effects. There could be some criticism in this department, though some of this is a matter of personal taste. Many people also think Will Byers' de-aging effect in episode 1 was not fully believable, plus there were some sets in earlier episodes that felt a bit strange to me. I guess maybe due to the excessive use of green screens rather than including more practical elements. I don't know. Moving on. So, when does much become too much? In this case, too many. Too many characters, that is. I don't know if it's just me, but until season 4 we had plenty of characters, including Robin, who became a new member of the main group. There was always something happening with each of them, and it was a lot, but it felt just right. Now they added one more main character, that being Holly, a few more notable supporting ones, those being Derek, Lucas's sister Erica, the science teacher Scott Clark, Kali, who's one of the test subjects from back in the day, and a bunch of other kids who Vecna needed for his plan. Most of these we've seen in previous seasons, but their role was negligible. Now everybody has a part to play, and more characters are stacked together in different groups for different reasons and sequences, so I felt drifted from the focus on some of the main characters and their arc. Also, in season 4, Vecna was indeed the Freddy Krueger of this universe and was truly a terrifying being, but here, besides the new look and besides being a total boss in episodes 4 and 5, he actually had difficulties dealing with a group of small children and was outwitted a couple of times by Holly and Max, then by the entire group of kids, Eleven and Kali. I have to say, I really like the idea of Vecna's main lair being the Mind Flayer itself, which it seems was static right until the final battle, when it takes the shape of another spider-like creature, only this time it's even bigger than season 3. Eleven makes a huge jump, opens a hole in the giant spider and enters inside to fight Henry, while the gang has to deal with the Mind Flayer outside on the rocky wilderness of the Abyss. In my opinion, both altercations were way too short, especially the one-on-one fight. I expected at least an extra minute of action going back and forth between the two most powerful characters. The battle on the outside was hilarious. Why? Because the gang up the most powerful primal force of both Earth and the Abyss too easily and too quickly, to say the least. Nancy, playing bait by firing at the mole-sized entity with her M16 rifle, is really funny, given that the Mind Flayer shouldn't even feel a pinch on its ass from bullets, and it is supposed to be much more intelligent than falling for a classic bait strategy while the others get the high ground. And you know what happens in movies when someone gets the high ground.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
Yep, that is what happens. The team actually lights the giant Mind Flayer with a simple flamethrower, then everyone contributes in a small way. You know, Molotovs, slingshots firing flammable balls, some spiking from Dustin and Steve, and let's not forget Will connecting to Vecna's mind again and breaking his arm. I guess all this was enough to bring the Great Beast down and allow Eleven to impale Vecna and to win the battle. And then everybody gathered inside the dead body of the Mind Flayer to witness Vecna's final moments. And I don't know if it was fitting or not, but Joyce of all people was the one who grabbed the necks and threw quite a sweat until she was fully able to decapitate him and end this once and for all. So the final battle ended way too quickly and rather easily. Not only that, but the thick plot armor didn't raise the stakes further and didn't allow the audience a shock from an unexpected tragedy during the fight. The tragic moment came a bit later with Jane's supposed sacrifice so she could really put an end to the military's experiments. I really appreciated the drama, but the moment took too long with constant switching from one character to another, reacting to her sacrifice. Plus, we had a final goodbye conversation between Mike and Elle, and this whole thing got dragged way too much, I think. When it comes to the epilogue, I already mentioned that I don't mind the slower pace and easing into the final scene in the basement, but god damn, did it have to take around 40 minutes? This way, it feels like the climax and the resolution of the conflict is rushed and short, and the epilogue is way too long. Honestly, it wouldn't have made a difference if they removed some extra scenes and conversations. By the way, what happened with Dr. K and the Wolfpack unit? Why did they leave the protagonists alone after all this? 11 was gone, but shouldn't they seek repercussions from the others for interfering with their plans? I don't know. Hopper and Joyce did deserve a happy moment together, with Jim proposing to her, but come on, there wasn't even a kiss after she accepted. This leads us to Mike's grief moments and the final scene in the basement where he, Will, Lucas, Dustin and Max are playing Dungeons and Dragons one last time. At the end of the game, Mike tells a narrative about the game's characters who represent each one of the characters in the show. As mentioned, there are quick scenes for all of them during the narrative, so we end up wondering if what Mike says could actually be true, including 11 being alive. So if Jane is indeed alive, why didn't she come back to Hawkins low-key and let everybody know that she's alive? I think that's pretty f***ed up if it were true, of course. At least there's some beauty in those last minutes of screen time, because you get to choose in your own mind. Given all the analysis and my personal opinion, I would say Stranger Things Season 5 is still pretty good, but there were more downsides than I expected, so if you put a gun to my head and forced me to rate it, I would give it a 7 or 7.5 out of 10 on a good day, and that's the way it is in my book. So that's it for this episode. I know many of you don't like the way all this wrapped up, but even if we change a few things about the ending and the 5th season, I think that this won't ruin Stranger Things' legendary status. I think we should be grateful for the past nearly 10 years of unique adventure that we had and should accept things the way they are. But don't you cry just yet, because I have some exciting news for you. I don't know if you know this, but the Duffer Brothers said that they've had another story from the same universe that they've been wanting to develop for quite some years. Now, when Stranger Things is over, they said that they would initiate the development sooner rather than later, so fingers crossed we'll get some exciting news sometime late in 2026 or 2027, who knows.